So let's talk about edit modes. These are global behaviors of how the files move around or how you can make edits. In a nutshell, 95% of the editing is done in two modes, slip and grid. Really simply, slip mode, you can just move things wherever you want. There are no restrictions. I can overlap. I can move things wherever I want. I'm just going to undo there, hit Z. And grid mode, based upon what my grid value is set to, if it's a musical value, or if it's a time-based value, it will snap. My movements will snap as well as my selections will snap. Right? So there's a tempo there, and I've already matched the tempo, and I have my 4 audio files. I shift selected between them. I'll move them over. I'm going to Command D, duplicate them. And so I'm just putting my little wood chopper sound on the downbeat of the quarter note of this beat. So the grid mode is very helpful for moving into quarter note increments. If I'd like to go a little bit faster now, let's say eighth notes, I would trim this back, and then I would option drag that, Command D, and now I'd be at eighth note resolution, right? So you can see, you can line things up that way. So that's grid mode, that's slip mode. And we're going to save shuffle and spot for later. I use those about 3% of the time. So shuffle's best for editing a vocal take. It's not very good for music. So let's say I want to delete this little part here. Watch what happens to my loop. I delete that in shuffle mode. And I just lost sync. So it will collapse the files. There is no overlap in shuffle mode. So if I want this file to be on top of there, it will like insert itself and move these things around. It's great for editing out silences in voiceover, radio stuff, things like that, books on tape where the sync doesn't really matter. However, the main edit modes are going to be slip and grid. There's also relative grid that we'll save for later. It just offsets your movements in the grid, but I can show you right now since I mentioned it. So I'm going to offset this just a little bit. Oh, I can suspend the grid mode by holding down Command. Otherwise, all my movements will snap. But if I hold down Command or Control on a PC, I can just offset it a little bit. I'm just doing this to show you what relative grid is. So if I want to move that now, see how it preserved the little offset right there? A little bit behind the beat, you could say. And that works for MIDI notes as well. So one little aside here is that we can measure time in Pro Tools in a few different ways. If we're working in grid mode, let's put it back to absolute grid there, grid mode, most likely we're going to be in bars and beats. So I had this little drop down here, and I had to make active the bars and beats, and I would put it in that. And then my time value now is counting in beats. And if I go to grid mode as an eighth note, and if I start to click on the downbeat here, it should be exactly on the downbeat because I guess I'm on quarter notes here. So this is bar, beat, and division of the beat. It's in 4/4 right now. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So yeah, so two main edit modes, slip and grid. Slip is open access, movement, anarchy mode, overlap. Grid will constrain your movements and edits to the grid value, whatever is set to right here. So most often it's bars and beats, time value, and a musical value. But it could also be these other minutes, seconds, or time code if you're doing film sound stuff. Yes, and that's about all I have to say for that now. So that gives you some options there if you want to work in time, grid mode, or if you want to work in slip. And I showed you a little bit about shuffle as well.